All right, so let's start with the first hand here, and we have the situation: George Dancer's opening from the cutoff. The point here is, first of all, I only had 55 hands on him. He's not playing so much no limit hold'em poker, but he has been open raising fairly loose. He was the chip leader, and yet he should adapt a little bit because he has two very decent regen stacks. My stack, I can regen a lot against him, and also the button. But since, as I said, I don't believe he will do so, we can regen fairly loose here. So he opens, we regen, and we look like a total idiot and get called by ace jack. But this happens. So in these situations, even though you might look like a total idiot, but every single time it gets through, you make a lot of money in the long run. This is a very profitable play. But I'm going to show you this in the hold'em resource calculator. So here we have George Dancer. He's opening from the cutoff, and this is the range I put him on. 30% is a very solid range. He can even open raise looser. He's 40 Queen 8 suited, Jack 8 suited, 9 7 suited. So this is already quite tight. So he might even open looser, as I just mentioned. So now this is me rejamming, and now we have to put the big blind on a 4-betting range. So if I rejam and now Buster Will here in the big blind comes along and 4-bet jams. So this is, I think, a reasonable range he would do it with. And then also George Dancer's calling range against my rejam. I think this is very reasonable. We are rejamming around, let me see. Yeah, we're rejamming around 14, 15 big blinds. So I think this is a range he could call. Can be a bit tighter, can be looser. It is quite realistic. So now we look at the hands we could rejam, and now you can see Queen 6 suited is very profitable. I already made the assumptions that George Dancer is opening fairly tight. So this basically gives me a little bit of edge. So even though 10-8 off might be not so profitable, but let's assume he's opening a little bit looser, which can definitely be the case. 33%, just 3% looser. Just 3% looser, and you can see how wide we can rejam. And I mean, this calling range, ace-8 off, I'm not really sure if Ray is calling this. So I think this is already the loosest range. I don't think he will raise call any looser. So you can see you should rejam fairly loose in these spots. There's one important point you want to consider. If there is a maniac sitting behind, sometimes, especially in low 6 MTTs, you're gonna have some of those opponents sitting behind. So let's assume Buster Will is not a good rag here. He is somewhat like a maniac. He's calling ace-10 suited against your jam, pocket sevens, king queen, ace-jack, ace-10 off, ace-9 suited. So instead of just 6 to 7%, he's calling 10%. Then it doesn't change so much, because very often I heard, yeah, what happens if there's an idiot, he calls me off with king queen suited. Those are only 2, 3, 4 hands. In general, if you are very aggressive in those spots, you're gonna make way much more money if you compared if you stick to your let's say pocket pair, your suited aces, and your suited broadways. I even see people folding a hand like Queen 9 suited, but those hands, they're just hugely profitable. So yeah, George Dancer calls and busts me in this tournament. What happens? Here we have pocket sevens, and I see people doing one crucial mistake here: flat calling. Pocket sevens, especially due to the fact that there are 2 other short stacks sitting behind. So if you start flatting those hands, what happens is that you give small blind and big blind the opportunity to come along and rejam by themselves. Whereas when we would have rejammed, they would have folded certain hands. So let's say smaller pocket pairs, king queen suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited, ace jack off. All those hands they would have folded if we would rejam. Also, they can call. Big blind gets great odds, button gets great odds. They can come along and call a lot of hands, and this would be horrible for our hand. So pocket 7 is very strong in a heads up pot, also when we're a bit deeper. So we're just too short. So here we want to take our forward equity, pull the trigger, and get it in. So based on this hand, pocket 7s here, I also want you to show how you should make the analysis here. So when you click on advanced hands, you just right click, copy the hand history, and then you click paste from clipboard, then you go next, then you enter the open raise size, then all in. So basically the action, we have an open raise and we go all in. Then you click on finish, and then he runs the analysis. I already did it, so we don't need to wait until he finishes it. So I can close this window. So then he gives you these ranges here. At first, they are pretty fucked up, so you have to adjust them. You always want to start giving your opponent, and this guy, this Krip guy, here, Krip, you want to give him or put him on an opening range. So he's opening from the low jack, probably he's opening around 22%. So we give him something like this. Yeah, maybe 18.9% is pretty reasonable. So then after him open raising, we have here the option of Ben CB 789 going all in. Then we hover over this arrow and we click on this arrow, and then we're not adjusting our range because we don't want to adjust our range. We want to see what we can rejam. And then we go back to this Krip guy and estimate what he might call against our rejam. So first we're going to stay a little bit pessimistic. So maybe something like eights, ace 10 suited, ace check off, king queen suited, which is for this position fairly loose. And then also here you can see 4B means 4-bet. So basically the calling range or the 4-bet ranges for the players behind, and they are always pretty tight. You can always put them on something like nines and ace queen. Here nines and ace queen as well. And here also nines and ace queen. And we already adjusted the calling range, and then we can look what hands we can rejam here. And as you can see, sevens is quite close. But this is basically the most negative assumptions I made. This is basically the worst case scenario. He's opening pretty tight. Let's assume he's opening around 20%, around 20%. And then you will see that sevens becomes decently profitable. So if that is the case, 7 becomes very, very profitable. Also, in reality, especially if you play against the regular, they're not calling it off with a hand like ace 10 suited or ace jack off here in these situations. And then pocket eights is pretty profitable. I wouldn't go any looser than sevens. I wouldn't go any looser than sevens though. And yeah, my rejamming, as also can you see ace jack off, and this is for many people a snap rejam for around 20 big blinds, but as you can see, it's not so profitable. So my range would be ace 10 suited, maybe ace jack off, king queen, king jack suited, queen jack suited, but also queen jack suited plays okay as a flat call, and king jack suited. So if you're not sure with king 10, queen jack suited, you can flat call it and play post flop in position. I would definitely fold 10-9 suited and also ace 9 suited. So here ace 10 suited would be the bottom suited ace. But let's see, if I know the guy, I have a higher sample size on him and he's opening more than 25%, then we should adjust and rejam looser. So the moment these pocket pairs are profitable to rejam with, you should rejam. It's not like that you're super deep. I mean, you can wait a few orbits until you're getting into this danger zone. But if you have a decently profitable rejam with a pocket pair, you want to do it. Especially when you have 20 big blinds, 18 big blinds, 22 big blinds, you cannot flat call them. it's pretty much a minus V flat call, since there will always be so many overcards and you have to fold on the flop, and you're not often enough hitting a set. It's just happening too seldom, hence it's either fold or shove. Unless you're in the big blind. If you're in the big blind and you're overcalling a raise, so you're getting the immediate odds, then it's reasonable. Most of the time, especially from the big blind, if you have less than 20 big blinds, you can rejam any pair. So let's go on. All right, here's one specific situation. And I know that a lot of you guys are struggling. And here's one very important rule. If the button, and you can see he has only 8 big blinds. I mean, if he jams, we have a snap call. But also based on my experience, what I have seen in sit and goes, also in tournaments, also with from conversations with other very good high stakes regulars, it's one rule you should follow here is, if you would call in all in, go all in by yourself if this guy open raises. Just treat it as all in. I saw so many crap hands, like especially from weaker opponents, recreational players. They just don't know that they should go in with 10 big blinds, and they just open raise, and then you have even fold equity. So here, just go all in. In this situation, I mean, it's not the best example to show you, but I got lucky. He had aces. It is quite often aces, but remember earlier. Now, since he has only 8 big blinds, we need only very little fold equity, like very little. He just needs to have some raise folds, and it's super profitable. Remember, with 20 big blinds, we only need to have 50% fold equity in order to have a profitable rejam with ace-2s off. Now imagine when we are playing effectively 8 to 9 big blinds, we don't need that much. And I also saw them raise calling with 10-8 suited, and then they felt committed, or they just raise folding. So don't confuse yourself. I mean, if you play against the same regs again and again, and you saw them doing it like already once or twice, always min raising with less than 10 big blinds, then you can start making adjustments. Against regulars, be a little bit more careful. There, I don't mind making move, but the moment it's an unknown, it's a fish, it's a weaker opponent, they just don't know what it means to be in the push or fold mode, which is obviously totally normal. They're fun players, they're hobby players, and then we just go all in by ourselves. We have fold equity, and they sometimes wake up with the most funniest hands ever. All right, here we have the situation facing an raise from under the gun. I also prepared this hand in Hold'em resource calculator, so let's take a look what hands we can rejam here. All right, so assuming this guy opens around 15% from under the gun, with his stack size, he is one of the bigger stacks on the table. He can easily open raise a bit looser. I think 15% is quite reasonable. He could even open 10-9 suited, 9-8 suited. So it's already quite tight for his position. Now, the question is, what is he calling against our rejam? So since we are rejamming against his under the gun open raise, I think his calling range is something like that. He's not having so many pairs. He's probably not opening any pair. So his calling range is something like this. And this is already on the loser side. And then you can see we have a decent rejam with ace-8 suited here. Now the EV drops a bit, but that doesn't really matter. Remember earlier when we had the ace-2s off-suited hand, it was a bit different because we were 20 big blinds deep. Now we only have 13 to 14 big blinds. So here it is definitely more worth to, let's say, quote unquote, gamble a little bit more. But ace-8, it shows still a good profit here. And also you can see in the charts here that big blind versus under the gun, for 15 big blinds, ace-8 suited is the last hand we should rejam. So I always give you those hands where you have really a decent profit. And here, let's dive a little bit into the quote-unquote 360 analysis. let's say this is one of the more looser regulars. He's opening, let's say, around 20%, so maybe something like this. Then you should adjust. And you can see his range is just becoming 4% looser. You might be aware of that. Let's say he calls us off a little bit looser. We can rejam any suited ace. So what you should, if you analyze this spot, knowing that, okay, against the 15% range, I should rejam ace 8 suited and better. Against 20 or let's say 19% range, I should rejam any suited ace. And I also hand like Jack 10 suited, ace 10 off, and ace 9 off. So always make assumptions based on how your ranges changes due to different or huge changes in our opponent's range, either open raising range or even stack size, based on stack size. You can also change the stack size. Give yourself 20 big blinds and check how wide can you rejam with the 20 big blind stack, and so on and so forth. All right, here ace king. I mean, nothing so much to say. We have around 23 big blinds, ace king off. We just go all in. We had this spot earlier as well, ace 10 suited. I explained to you how the cold caller's stack size affects our rejam range. This is something also, just take the Hold'em Reducers calculator, simulate some spots, change the stack sizes, and then you will get a feeling. Obviously, we cannot cover every single scenario. Then this course, just Restealing, would have been like 10 hours long. So I'm just showing the key spots, how you can also work on your own. The most important rules you should follow, the basic ranges, and then it is up to you whether you want to go even further, become even better, become really, really great. And then you need to do those things I'm telling you based also at the end. Those are the spots where you need to put in the work. You need to analyze them in order to become a real crusher. You will become for sure pretty good just with this course, but the course is only 50%. If you want to become a crusher, you need to put in the hours. You probably know that. So please don't think that it's like swallowing a pill, the magic pill, and you will become insanely good and you're going to play super high rollers. No, this is not going to happen. All right, let's continue. Pocket eights here. And this situation here, especially against under the gun, you can use the ranges I have prepared for you. So here, cutoff versus under the gun +1. We have a proper rejam here with pocket eights, but this is pretty much the bottom. We shouldn't go any looser. So, no, it's under the gun, not under the gun +1. Sorry, my bad. So we just get it in. If you have sevens, I would advise to fold and not to call. Another spot that is similar to the Queen 6 suited hand earlier. Here we also go in fairly loose, similar to the range I have been showing you earlier with the Hold'em Reducers calculator. Any suited ace, any suited Broadway, king queen off, king jack off, ace 9, ace 8 off, any pair, 10 9, 9 8 suited, queen 7 suited, 6 5 suited, 9 7 suited, all those holdings, we go all in here.